You'll never guess what happened to me alone sometime around a decade ago. I was in a house of average size, and until I was about halfway through my childhood, my older brother and I shared a room. Think of this: 2 twin beds on different walls, 2 dressers, 2 closets, room for a desk anywhere was nil. It wasn't packed, but it definitely wasn't what you'd consider cozy. And when my brother finally went off to college, I didn't wait around. I laid claim to his bed, redecorated the room, of course, with his permission, and eventually got my longed-for dream desk. No more homeworking in the basement or squeezing into my dad's office. For 2 years, it was perfect. Fast forward, I off to college, and life continues. Then my brother finds a city job and comes back home. And surprise, surprise, he moves in and redecorates the very same room that I'd spent months preparing. I was angry at first, but my parents pointed out to me that I'd done the same to him many years ago. Fair enough, I gave in. A bit later, I complete school and get myself a city job, so I head back home to my parents' place too. But this time, there is no room for me either. The only option left, the guest room on the 2nd floor. It is tiny, half the size of my first room, situated just next to my dad's study, and over the garage translation. Every time the garage door opened, there was a 10-second earthquake, like floor shaking. The room itself was on the corner of the house with 2 windows that faced opposite sides. Not ideal, but quiet and out of the way. Now, all of this on a Friday night. My parents were over at the shore house for the weekend, and my brother was in Baltimore for a work conference. I simply had a horrific day at the office, so I didn't have anything going on. I simply ordered dinner, went to bed, and tried to relax with a book. The house was quiet, a nice relief. And then I heard it, the creak of the garage door easing open, followed by that all too familiar hum beneath my feet. My thoughts blanked for a moment. No one was supposed to be home. My parents weren't due back until Sunday. My brother not until Saturday. My heart pounding, I sprang out of bed and peered out the window into the driveway. Nothing but black engulfed everything. I could see the open garage door, but no automobiles, no people, anything. Panic set in an instant. I didn't hesitate. I rushed into the closet and grabbed one of the old baseball bats my parents had brought with them when we moved from my childhood. Something was definitely wrong. As I went down the stairs, I still attempted to rationalize things. There had to be a logical explanation. Maybe my parents had suddenly remembered something and had come home from work early. Maybe my brother's shift had been unexpectedly changed. Hell, maybe the garage door had simply malfunctioned without anyone doing anything to it. But then I did hear it, muted, unmistakable whispers from the rear of the house where the bedrooms were. Quiet enough that I couldn't make out words, but I knew there were more than one of them. That was when reality hit me. Somebody had entered my house. I searched for my phone and dialed 911, whispering out my address and telling them that intruders were in my house. The operator told me not to move and not to alert the burglars as to my location. But I had this strange, unbelievable urge to act. Something in me did not want to just cower. Defying all orders, I decided to go after them. Grabbing a bat, I crept down the hall towards the noise. When I neared my parents' room, I could hear drawers open and things being searched through. They were clearly on the lookout for something valuable. My heart racing in my chest, I couldn't help myself. I took a deep breath, yelled at the top of my lungs to frighten them, and stormed into the room, bat held high over my head. There were 2 men in my mother's closet. The surprise on their faces gave me a surge of confidence. Neither had expected anyone to be home, much less someone who would fight back. I clubbed the closer one in the leg. He cursed and collapsed, then went over. But before I could strike at the second man, he brought me down to the ground. He was bigger than I'd imagined he'd be, and yanked the bat effortlessly out of my hands. Then his hands were around my throat. I was choking, struggling to breathe, clawing at him, desperately trying to get loose. That is when I saw the first man sneaking towards us with something glinting in his hand. A knife. In that moment, I realized how stupid I'd been. I'd actually underestimated the danger. My life was at stake, And for a few paralyzing seconds, I accepted that this might be it. My last moments in my parents' bedroom. I only thought of how devastated my mom would be if she lost me. Then, distantly, faintly, I heard it, police sirens. Fear and relief became a disorienting mix. The vision of the second man raising my own baseball bat to strike me was the final thing I remembered before I lost consciousness. When I came to, someone shook me gently. A police officer knelt next to me, inquiring if I were okay. When I finally regained consciousness, I was disoriented and lost. It took a few seconds to piece together what had happened. My eyes wildly roved the room, and I noticed something terrifying. The door between my parents' bedroom and the backyard was wide open. The robbers had apparently struck me and made a getaway through the back the moment they heard sirens. The on-scene officer instructed me not to move around too much and stay still, just in case I had experienced a concussion or trauma. My head was pounding, but I was conscious and oriented. A poor consolation in the chaos. After the paramedics confirmed that I was physically unharmed, I refused to go to the hospital and insisted on giving the officers a full account of what had just happened. They explained to me that they were searching around the area for the suspects. But when they arrived, the men had already run off. I phoned my parents and my brother later on to inform them of the news after having snapped pictures of the scene. No wonder. My parents were furious. They scolded me badly for venturing out to greet the burglars instead of clinging to safety. And guess what? They were right. If I had stayed concealed, the police would have really had a chance to catch them. The burglars never were caught. Though they walked the neighborhood and chased leads, the men vanished like phantoms. My parents subsequently equipped our home with a top-of-the-line security system, cameras, motion sensors, lights, the whole package. But even with all that, there was one thing that continued to bug me about the burglary. All the doors in the house were shut that evening, and there was only one access to getting into the garage door, and that was through a hidden wireless remote my dad had set on the car. There was no possibility a stranger could have figured that out. Whoever broke in knew us well enough to know where to look. And the timing, too precise to be coincidental. They knew my parents would be out of the house for the weekend, and that my brother would be away. My family